What if I told you that the most effective healing, the most effective methods, tactics, strategies that I found to heal myself from CPTSD, ADHD have been not from like the mainstream medications, therapy modalities, and all of that. Now, I'm not saying those things aren't important. I'm not saying those things aren't effective. I'm just saying for myself and in my life, I found that going through a holistic journey has been the most life-saving, life-changing strategy that I've taken for myself. And what is holistic really? Think about it. It's in the word. Holistic is whole. Whole meaning taking the whole of our bodies, of our mind, of our soul, our spirit, taking the whole and seeing it from this farther out lens instead of this one specific problem, because usually one specific problem is tied to a bunch of other problems and tied to this one umbrella thing. Now, maybe you're thinking, who the hell is this? What is he talking about? I don't know how I came across this video, but this channel is dedicated to healing the self. It's dedicated to healing the wounding within. It's dedicated to living a better type of life. Literally, it is just living a better type of life. I specialize more in masculine energy because I myself have gone through a more masculine healing path. But this video is really for anyone that is struggling with complex PTSD, trauma, recovering. It doesn't even have to be anything that crazy, but just simply knowing that there's something wrong. There's a dissonance in our life. There's a dissonance in something within or externally, and that we feel we want to change, that we feel called to change. We feel called to do something different and change the trajectory of our life. And I want to go back to something I said in the beginning of this video, that the path of professional help, therapies, medications, and all of that, I don't want anyone to watch this and be like, oh, like you're giving people really bad advice. Some people really need these medications. I'm not saying that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you to get off anything. I'm not telling you to stop going to therapy, because I've done all of those things. I have had like 4 therapists. I've gone through different therapy modalities like CBT, DBT. I have been on medication. I've been on depression, anxiety medication. I've been on ADHD medication. I'm a man of science. I've been a man of science. I actually work in a lab, a medical lab. It doesn't make me professional, all right, in terms of like giving professional advice. I'm not a pharmacist, a doctor, nothing like that. But I do have a scientific background. I do understand the mechanics, the physiology of the body. However, what changes that I had a spiritual awakening. What changes that I had a dark night of the soul, which is like when the worst things happen to you in your life. You have no choice but to like be in this terrible situation where your mental health is failing, your physical health is, it's like everything all at once coming at you, and you have no choice but to surrender to that and really be like, something has to change, something is different, and it forces you to change. There's some evidence pointing that when we're in the darkest pits of hell, when we're in the darkest moments of our life, there's a slip of consciousness almost. We are so in pain. We're so in pain, and maybe you're there right now, or maybe you've experienced this yourself. Maybe you're not there yet, but maybe this will resonate in the future if that ever does happen to you, that our ego cannot sustain such pain in our lives, like the loss of loved ones or something super tragic, right? That our ego has to almost like break, because it cannot sustain that pain. It cannot sustain something so traumatic. It's almost like we become enlightened for the moment. It's almost as if we connect to God, because God is the only way. Like, we realize this material reality, it's like it becomes fractured because of how intense that pain becomes. And a lot of people, that leads to their spiritual awakening. So that's what happened to me. My sister passed away. I lost who I thought was the love of my life. There's a massive betrayal and a bunch of other things at once. Like I hadn't healed from the complex trauma, the childhood trauma that I was carrying. I just had so much at once. I was living a life of lies. I wasn't living a true, authentic life. And it all came crashing down on me. And it forced me to come to terms with who I actually am. It forced me to come into a spiritual experience. It's very difficult to explain, but if you've been there, I'm sure you understand where I'm going with that. I was doing materialist type of things, right? I would go see a psychiatrist. The first time it was for anxiety and depression. And it was a very short appointment. It was like 10 minutes. I remember walking in. I thought it was going to be this like therapy session, cathartic, like this cathartic thing that someone was going to tell me, this is what's wrong with you. This is how we're going to fix it, and you're going to be fine. I know it's like unreasonable, but I was much younger then. I'm in my late 20s now, so I have a bit of experiences under my belt, but I was young. I don't think I was even 21 yet. I was still, I think, in my late teens. It was a 5-minute appointment, very like brief, like, what's the problem? And it's not that my psychiatrist was bad. Like he wasn't bad. He was a good man, but had all these patients. There's a certain protocol to follow. It was all bounded by these regulations and this demand, right? So many people that were mentally unwell, and this is before COVID. It's gotten worse since COVID. Like the mental health crisis has gotten worse. So I can only imagine, like, it's just in and out, in and out. The same way we see our primary doctor, right? At least in the United States. If you're not in the United States, maybe it's not like this, but I'm talking about for the United States. It's very in and out, very impersonal. At the same time, they're doing what they can. Like, I'm not really attacking this psychiatrist or this doctor that I've had, but it was just kind of like, okay, so what's the problem? I thought I would be able to like talk about it more because I knew there was something wrong, and I thought it was me, but I mean, there's something that I'm not seeing, and maybe this guy can help me out. And it was not like that at all. My expectations were up here, and it was just down here. Very lovely, nice man, but at the end of the day, it was just like, okay, so you have some anxiety, mild depression, maybe just some medication, take it, come back to me in, I don't know how long it was, a few weeks, and let me know how it goes, and then we'll up it or we'll change your medication. And that was it. There was no solution. It was just a pill. And I remember exactly what it was. And so I started taking it. I was hopeful. It's like, okay, I've read from people that some people just need medication, right? Some people have a messed up brain. I grew up and studied in that era where the science was saying, oh, you're missing serotonin. Like, you don't have enough serotonin. So like, you need more serotonin. So this is gonna, take an SSRI and it'll cure you, basically. Now we know better. Now we know it's pretty mainstream. I think that we know that most of the time that doesn't work. And again, I'm not a medical professional. Nobody come at me. But like, I think this is a common knowing that these things don't really work. I mean, there's a certain type of individual, I believe, that really biologically, like, they really don't have the right amount of like neurochemicals, neurotransmitters and stuff like that. The same way that ADHD is a lack of dopamine. But for the most part, I've figured out throughout my life journey and comparing other people's and what they've said and friends I've made is that a lot of the times our problems are from environmental, external things. Like, if you went through trauma and you haven't resolved that, and you're living with this baggage and you're living with this type of PTSD, how are you expected to be like healthy and happy and whole and really feel that when that hasn't been processed through our body, through our mind, through ourselves? Like, of course we're gonna be stressed, depressed, anxious if we've been through something traumatic and we haven't worked through that. But a lot of the time the solution is this pill. That doesn't really work. That doesn't get at the root of the problem. Maybe it like numbs you out or does this or that. So I took this medication and I didn't really notice any difference, to be honest. Like, maybe my anxiety like lessened a little bit, but I was experiencing anxiety because I had trauma trapped in my body. I had gone through some shitty experiences as a child, and I was living these patterns of life, a very terrible fucking life. Like, I felt anxious even going to the post office. I was socially anxious. I had an extremely dysregulated nervous system because my nervous system adapted to the one as I was a child. And then after, it just became all crazy, it became worse as I got older. And then I had undiagnosed ADHD, so that's another dysregulation of the mind. And when these things like clash with each other, it's not a pretty sight. I wasn't living a fulfilling life. I was a hermit. I wasn't doing the things that I felt passionate about, that I loved, because I was too scared to do them. I was failing my classes. I wasn't doing well in college because, again, I had undiagnosed ADHD, and I thought it was all my fault. I'm not trying to blame it on the ADHD, by the way. I think there are natural ways to like working on that. I just didn't know how to live life. I was living a life like delayed. I saw a lot of people doing a lot better than I was, but I was like, what's wrong with me? There's clearly something that I I'm not doing right, and I would internalize that. I really had a lot of self-loathing, a lot of self-hate. I didn't like who I was in relationships. I was not a good boyfriend, and I didn't know how to stay single. I was always chasing women to fill this hole in my heart, and that's what I had. I had a hole in my heart. I felt empty. I felt alone. I felt I couldn't trust anyone. It was just a terrible mind to be in, a terrible body to be in. So it wasn't safe. And that's why I was anxious. Like, it makes sense, right? Like, I had all these things in myself, in my body. But somehow with this medical system, healthcare system, the pill, here you go. I got switched around to a different medication because it didn't really help. The only reason I liked the medication I took afterward was because it knocked me out. I was a chronic insomniac. I mean, it makes sense. I was dysregulated. So I loved it because it was like, oh my god, this is the only thing that like puts me to sleep. That's crazy. I've never had that happen. So did it help me with anxiety and depression? No. And there were other side effects that I didn't really like. And I finally got off it because I just kept researching and reading and really studying because I wanted to understand myself and how to like get myself out of this, and just reading how disheartening people's experiences were. And that basically, even in my psychology class, it's like, well, we kind of guess and then we like give it to you and hope for the best. Like, essentially, like, not to reduce a profession to that, but essentially that's what was happening. Like, here you go, hopefully it helps you and you don't kill yourself. But oh my god, that is just, it's not holistic at all. To sidetrack, it is focusing on one thing and one perspective that is probably not true for most people. I would say like 90% of people do not have this chemical imbalance in their brain. I mean, maybe they do because of the conditioning, because of the environment, but it can be regulated back again. And that's what I've done throughout these years. And it took many years. I got off all psychiatry medication. I tried to do it by myself and pushed through, and I just kept falling on my ass, and like, if anything, falling straight on my face. Like, just it was not a pretty sight up until I started becoming more spiritual and started seeking more holistic ways of healing, because I had seen people doing really well. And the thing is, I was Mr. Science Man. I was Mr. Atheist. I wasn't fully atheist, but I just couldn't have faith. I didn't believe in God. I felt like the world was just material, that there was no proof, etc. I never connected to my heart. But when I had that spiritual awakening and started doing more of a holistic approach, like meditating and reading and having self-compassion, self-love, journaling, and doing like subconscious work where I was reprogramming the subconscious patterns in my brain that were harming me, is when I started really seeing results and taking a very holistic approach, seeing things from a different perspective outside of the system that keeps us like this. And maybe it works for some people, but I know more people that it hasn't worked for them, and they've had a lot of failings, and if anything, it has harmed them, and have gone outside of this system and found better ways. Which is why I want to focus on holistic in this video. What is holistic? And holistic is seeing things from many angles, from almost like an outside perspective, to look at the whole of the person. And what is a person really? Like, a person is made up of many things. To live a healthy life, like, there's many components to it. There's sleep, right? Sleep is essential to our well-being. Without sleep, we actually lose our minds. In a couple of days without sleep, we start hallucinating, we become delusional, we like actually become mad. And then there's food, nutrition. This is the building blocks of our body. Most of the food, at least in the US, is crap. It's processed. It has things that are illegal in other countries, yet somehow legal here. Very salty, a lot of preservatives. Even the materials that we use a lot have like phthalates and things that ruin our hormones, like especially testosterone, their estrogenics. And there's just a lot of components to this, and it doesn't really take a lot to think about it. If we're eating something that doesn't do well for our bodies, that damages us, it's going to have its ramifications throughout, even in our brain. You ever eat like a really bad, unhealthy meal? Let's say you're fasted, and the first thing you eat is something very carb heavy, sugar heavy. Maybe you'll have that sugar high for a little bit, but just afterward, it's complete crap, and you can't focus. and your body feels sluggish and you just don't want to do anything. Like, start noticing the patterns of the foods you eat, and you'll start to see, certain foods actually make me feel a lot better, a lot more happy, a lot more productive, a lot more whole, a lot more like, oh, seems like it belongs in my body likes it. Our body is communicating with us. So that's another component of that. Our relationships. Humans are meant to have relationships. We're meant to have love. We're meant to be in community. And this is probably not something a lot of people want to hear, especially if you have complex PTSD or some form of trauma or whatever it is you're dealing with, because that automatically wants us to become isolated. And that was also a problem I had in the past, where I isolated a lot, because if I don't have trust in myself, I don't have trust in others. And I don't want to put myself in situations where harm might come to me or I might harm others. So I would just isolate and self-sabotage my relationships. So relationships is another component that is necessary. As much as even to this day, I'm like, I kind of just like being in the forest by myself. And I do, but I realize relationships are important. I actually really like them and enjoy them now more than ever, more than in the past. And it's because of the work, because now I have trust in myself, I have trust in the world. And even if something becomes difficult, I'll be able to navigate it. That's also trust. So it's become easier. I have a preference for like being on my own for a bit, being with plants and learning about them, and in nature and hiking. But there's a time and place for it. And my relationships are very important. So relationships, if we're surrounded by people that harm us, by people that don't support us, by people that make us feel unsafe, it makes sense if we don't feel good. That environment of people is not good. So that's another component of this holistic view. Another holistic component could be spirituality, our connection to God. And if you're not spiritual, if you're not really into that type of stuff, it's not something maybe that you'll be interested in hearing. However, to keep an open mind, when I became spiritual and open to that door for myself, my life became a lot better. Even when the other areas of my life weren't that great, at least that area of life was consistent. You know, nobody can take away my faith. Nobody can take away something that is part of the fabric of reality, the fabric of who I am and who we all are at the core, all interconnected, all a part of God, all a part of consciousness. So it's something very stable to have in life. Cultivating this part of our lives could really be important. It could give us significance and purpose. Like, you have a purpose in life, I have a purpose in life. We have certain gifts. You have a gift. We all play a very distinct role in this world. And having that purpose, having that drive, having that like goal, that just knowing, is something that I can't put into words, because it's just so, it feels so good. So there's another component of the holistic view on the self. There's more, obviously, but that's some of the most important ones. Now, when we're in trouble and there's a problem we have, and it could be a physical problem, an emotional problem, mental thought problem, it's so easy to like magnify it and just focus on that problem. And that's a thing. One thing I'll say, like, what has helped me a lot, and I know this helped a lot of people, and even in my study, like right now I'm studying herbalism and how to kind of like determine what is wrong with a person, like how to like help them, is taking a step back and viewing the entire thing. So like, let's say you have a digestive problem, for example, and you wake up, you eat a certain meal like consistently, and you always feel tired, bloated, you know, you feel sluggish. But like, we're just focusing on the symptoms, like, well, I'm just gonna take some, I don't know, Pepto-Bismol or some Buscopan, and that's treating the symptom. Like, every day you take this and it works, you know, but you used to feel like, like I feel kind of crappy, but like at least I'm not in pain. Like, it's good to detach from that and be like, okay, so what is it that is causing it? We're not focusing on the symptoms, we're focusing on the bigger picture, focusing on the root of it. The root of it is maybe there's something you're eating that your body is intolerant to, and you're not really noticing this like thing, and maybe you cut out that thing once you've like been like, maybe I should change what I'm eating. Maybe instead of having like bread for breakfast, because you could be gluten intolerant, I'll have some eggs some protein, right? And some fruit. So let's have some eggs and fruit. And suddenly you notice, oh my God, like I have energy in the morning. My stomach, my intestines aren't bothering me. I can focus. I'm not taking those medications. Like I'm good. And that's a way to see it, where we have to like detach ourselves from that one specific problem, be like, examine it outside of it. Let's say we're moody, we're irritable, we're tired, but we're not sleeping well. You know, it's a very simple thing. Like maybe we're just sleeping 5-6 hours a night, and your body would do better with more sleep. But then now it's like, okay, why am I having trouble sleeping? You know, it could be like you're drinking caffeine too late, or maybe meditation in the middle of the day helps you become more mindful and trains your brain to not overthink. Because like what keeps you up maybe is your overthinking, right? Once you like let those thoughts go, or at least you allow your body, your brain to just do what it does, but you don't pay it much attention, you're able to sleep better. So there's these different ways of looking at these problems. That's the way that I've approached complex PTSD. That's the way I've approached healing, and it's made the biggest difference compared to like the medical way, like the healthcare way of the pill. Again, I'm not saying stop taking things. I'm not saying stop going to a therapist, because I think that those are still valuable in their own way. What I'm saying is there's more power to us than a lot of people believe. We have sovereignty. We have control of certain things in our life. Like for example, what has helped me regulate myself. Like right now, I'm actually at an okay spot. Like my sleep could use improvement, because I use sleeping aids, no sleeping pills. I use like some herbal capsules called Deep Sleep. Sometimes I take this like dark chocolate, I forgot what it's called, but it's like something RX, and has melatonin and 5-HTP. Sometimes I take an edible with a very small amount of CBN and THC, so I can like relax in my body. So I do take these things because I haven't gotten to the moment where I can let these things go, and I'd rather have a good sleep. But overall, like I've regulated myself, because like 2 months ago, it was bad. I crashed hard. I burnt out. It was not doing well, like in terms of my nervous system. But now it's like better, a lot better. It's taken years to get to this point where a lot of it was done holistically. A lot of it was done by regulating my sleep, by regulating my breathing, by doing that deep breathing, by strengthening my bond with God, by healing my relationships with my parents and my family and my loved ones, by living a true, authentic life and not living a farce, like not living in a way that is against my own standards, my own principles. And I started reading books like How to Do the Work by Nicole De La Pera. I read Complex PTSD by Paul Walker. I believe I might have gotten that wrong, but it's called Surviving to Thriving Complex PTSD or something like that. I read Psycho-Cybernetics, How to Reprogram Your Subconscious Mind Through Self-Hypnosis, Subliminals, and NLP. So I've done NLP. I looked into the work of Bruce Lipton. I really highly recommend him because he's also about the subconscious reprogramming. He wrote The Biology of Belief. And this was all work that I did myself. Yeah, I bought the books, I listened to YouTube videos, and I applied it as well. And I'm not gonna lie, I was skeptical at first. I remember doing my first journal entries, and I was like, there's no way writing some crap is going to help me out. And I specifically did the journal entries that Nicole De La Pera did, the holistic psychologist, gave for free, like this prompt. And I did it every single day. Every single day I did it. I was like, I'm in a bad place. This has to change. I can't live like this, so I'm gonna give this a try because I'm desperate. And it worked. Like, I remember writing the words, I love myself. Something along those lines. Probably longer than that, but something along those lines of I love myself. Not believing it because I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that love for myself, genuinely. And maybe you feel the same way. Like, I don't feel it, Nathan. I don't believe it. Like, how am I gonna say this to myself? And I'm lying to myself. But the thing is, keep doing it, because I didn't believe it either. I didn't believe I could ever live a life where I woke up without anxiety. I didn't think I could look in the mirror and love myself. I'm being dead ass serious. And it's crazy to think about now, because now I'm like, duh. Yeah, I love myself. Yeah, I care about myself. Yeah, I have like high self-esteem. Like, yeah, like I'm confident. But it took years, it took a while. I would say months to really see some results where I started noticing like, I don't hate myself that much, or I don't hate myself anymore. I'm living in a way that is actually, I don't feel shame. And when you let go of shame, which is the lowest vibration emotion, holy shit, your life changes. Like if you have any shame about something, that's a really good starting point, because once you let that go, it's like letting a huge weight out of, like you're letting it go. So this is basically why I'm advocating for holistic healing. And I know it might be like, I don't know how this video will be taken, but honestly it doesn't really matter, because this has helped me and has helped a lot of people. And whether I get attacked for it or not, canceled or not, I don't care. I genuinely don't care, because I'm speaking my truth, I'm speaking my experience, I'm speaking what has helped me and I know can help others. We have a lot more power than we think, especially when we've been disempowered in life. You've lived through this childhood trauma or whatever it has been. It leaves you very disempowered, and it becomes learned helplessness. But honestly, there's so much we can do. There's so much that is in the realm of our power. There's so much that can make us feel alive again. It just takes time, and it does take time, because again, our brain has to rewire, and our subconscious has to rewire. Our body has to become accustomed to this new regulated self. But it does happen. I'm not saying life is going to be perfect. This is bulletproof, that there aren't going to be hard times, because there are going to be. The difference is you're going to know how to navigate those a lot better, and I know how to navigate those a lot better. And I can sit with that anxiety, I can sit with that discomfort and just let it pass by. And I never was able to do that before. It's terrible. Anyway, I know this is a long video, so thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. I hope it helped you out. It's actually been a while, so I'm kind of rusty out of practice. I hope it didn't go too much everywhere. So I'm going to be making more videos like this, probably a little bit better, more specific. I didn't script this one, so the examples were on the fly. Next time I'll have something a lot more structured and better. Not totally structured, that's not my style, but like something a bit more tangible. This is more just like a broad video on what is holistic healing, like what really is holistic healing versus like the traditional model we have, at least in the United States. So I hope you've enjoyed and that this has helped you out. Share it to any friends that might help you out, that you think might like benefit, that are struggling. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed and liked this video, just to push it out to more people who might need this. Stay tuned. I have more coming up. I can't promise it's going to be super consistent, because I have a full-time job and other things that I'm focusing on. However, this is a labor of love, a labor of genuinely wanting to help. So stay tuned in, and I'll see you in the next video.